Talking to Howard Peck. How's it going? You're in, tell us where you're located.
I am an hour north of Philadelphia, a little south of Allentown, Pennsylvania, but hour north of Philadelphia, kind of in a semi-rural area called the Upper Perkiomen Valley. And we have snow coming down now. They're predicting about 4 or 5 inches on March 25th. We're dealing with snow.
2013. Yeah, it's a lot of snow. Yeah, where
And
should we start?
before we start, what
Yeah,
I would like to say to you is that sometimes your newsletters come just at wonderful times, a busy day, distracted, just living my life as a regular guy here in the eastern part of Pennsylvania, and here's on my phone a newsletter from a non-dual newsletter from Jerry Katz, and I scan it, I read it, I glance at it, whatever pulls me, and it's just kind of a cosmic digital reminder.
yeah,
And yeah, it's wonderful. You know, technology today, it's just wonderful, and I greatly appreciate your efforts.
the non-duality highlights. Thank you.
Yeah,
And I have to thank my co-editors, Mark Otter and Gloria Lee, who
yeah.
give it great legitimacy, I think. Yeah, thank you. Hmm. So people, you got your website, and I'll put this down. I'll type this in, but your website is, or one of them anyway, is Tai Chi with Howard Peck,
Yes, that's a
right?
website I use
Oh,
just as a foundation to talk a little bit what I do in regards to my practice and teaching of Tai Chi. Hmm.
yeah. I mean, I looked at your videos. Your videos I found very striking because, I mean, I mean, they're really beautiful to watch. You have such a nice flow to what you do. It's almost like almost cartoon-like.
Oh,
It's almost like beyond real, really.
oh,
So,
no,
I mean that
thank
as a
you. Well,
compliment.
yeah, that Tai Chi has a flow to it. That's one of the principles of Tai Chi movement, and I've been doing it a long time. So I guess with practice, such type of movement comes, and it's very beneficial. I enjoy it. Been doing it a long time, and as I get older, doing it becomes more valuable, as you might know.
Yeah,
Movement becomes more valuable, I think, as we get older. I'm
yeah,
57 and my body is changing right before my eyes. Just a little pain, a little more effort needed here, and some internal stuff going on that's never happened before. Though there's always been a lot of attention paid to health and diet and movement, but age is age, and it's starting to change now. So
you say on your website that the Tai Chi that you practice and teach isn't related to martial arts, more to
yeah,
day-to-day living. So perhaps you can talk about that.
yeah, that's a good place to start. Tai Chi Chuan, so it's Taichichuan. That's the official name, and it's spelled in different ways as well. So, phonetically, it also has been translated as Taijiquan, Tai Chi Chuan. So there's different ways to phonetically translate from the Chinese, but nevertheless, Tai Chi is a system of philosophy, mainly the harmonious relationship of opposites, or as we know it is yin yang. So Tai Chi is the philosophy is yin yang, and Chuan means fist, which means martial art. So it's a philosophy of yin yang, where the harmonizing energies, the harmonizing of opposite energies in the practice of martial arts. So that's like the official definition of Tai Chi Chuan. So as it came over here, the informality allowed us to start just calling it Tai Chi. Originally, it was a potent, very potent and sought after martial art in China. So when I talk to people about its martial art origin, oftentimes the question is, well, wait, how can a martial art be effective if all the movements are done slow? So the myths that get passed down, which seems to make sense to me, is that originally it wasn't practiced slow. Originally it was practiced very fast, and all the movements that we see often practiced slow were done very fast to practice in real life martial art situations. And the schools used to practice like karate schools or kung fu schools would practice. Partners would square off and practice these techniques and free spar using the principles and movements and postures of this Tai Chi martial art. So what would happen periodically with Tai Chi is that a master would go to a student and say, see this movement you're doing here, you're not doing it quite right, let's slow it down. Let's take each part and slow it down until you get it, and then work your way up to doing it fast. So the movements were practiced slowly so that there be some mastery achieved, as opposed to just practicing it so fast where perhaps some precision was lost. So then after a while they started practicing all the movements slow just to gain proficiency and accuracy in the movement. And then, lo and behold, they realized, well, just practicing these movements slowly are very beneficial because it becomes somewhat of a meditation. And then as people got older, they moved towards practicing slower. We're not talking about 19 or 20-year-old strong martial artists that just want to practice the movements fast. So the movements became almost a practice unto themselves slowly. And as time moved on in China and definitely throughout the West, when there was less and less of a need to practice martial arts because there was police forces and systems of justice that helped protect innocent people, and there wasn't so much of a need to worry about knowing martial arts, and of course weapons became available. The slow qualities of Tai Chi stayed intact, and it began to be taught and practiced mainly as a system of health, meditation, and body movement. And rarely do I encounter someone who still practices Tai Chi for martial arts. There are some schools in the U.S. that do that. Certain styles lean towards that, but the mostly practiced styles in the U.S. practice typically slowly and more for, like I said, health and graceful movement and meditative qualities. Now, within that, there are exercises whereby you work with a person. You might have heard the expression called pushing hands. It's pushing hands where you square off with a person and attempt to use the techniques to push the other person off balance typically and gain an advantage using the principles and the techniques of Tai Chi. But typically it's not practiced as a martial art. I don't practice it a martial art. However, when I do practice and teach it, it's always with a martial art focus, meaning what are the techniques, why are we doing it like this? This is the martial art application. But most importantly, awareness and postural integrity, I stress, as if we were really learning how to fight, even though we're not. And that postural integrity and that overall awareness, that can now spill over into your daily life just to help create sensitivity and awareness and a sense of wholeness. And so that's a little bit of the origin of Tai Chi, moving from fast martial arts to more of a slow meditative practice. And that's how I teach it, and that's how I practice it.
Yeah, and you incorporate, according to your website, you incorporate music in practice and in teaching, which sounds, reasonable, according to what you've just, described.
Yeah, mainly classical Chinese music. It seems to fit very well with these movements. And if I'm holding a class indoors, there's always some nice, soft, classical Chinese music that seems to meld nicely with these movements. Yeah. Sometimes silence is good too. Part of the practice of Tai Chi, for those that incorporate it, and I do on a regular basis, is standing meditation, and there I don't use music. But for the movements, definitely use music. It's nice.
Standing meditation, what I read on your website was kind of interesting. And I think you said you incorporate that into every class at some point.
Yes. Yeah, it's a very, very simple and very potent practice. I also do sitting meditation. I mean, that's my interest in such somehow brought me to your non-dual newsletter and other things. Yeah. But I also incorporate standing meditation with Tai Chi, and very potent in that it's a form of meditation, so we want to attempt to be present. as far as our awareness goes, but also it teaches us how to stand with some strong yet relaxed posture. And there's a couple different ways to hold the hands in front of you, like you're holding a big watermelon as an example, or you're maybe trying to put your arms around a tree. Those are more for strength building, but the most widely practiced that I do personally and I teach is just hands at the side and doing nothing, just standing with certain attention paid to different aspects of our posture, and we stand. And it seems so simple, but it takes practice to feel comfortable in proper standing. And that type of, why I call it very potent, is because you can stand anywhere. So you could be waiting in the post office. I don't know if there's post offices in Canada, or waiting in line for something, or just standing and talking to a coworker or talking to somebody in a store, and you become aware of your posture. You're upright, you're relaxed, and that oftentimes initiates also a mental awareness, so a meditative quality. And so just from formally practicing the standing meditation, it spills over into one's quote-unquote daily life. Now, standing meditation isn't something that I invented. It's a very widely practiced form of Qigong. So officially it's known as Zhangzhuang Qigong. And Zhangzhuang is loosely translated as post-standing, as if we were just a post standing there. And I enjoy it, I teach it. It's a wonderful, wonderful practice.
Probably not easy either.
No, you have to work your way up to extended periods of time. So sometimes we start off with just 2 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, and it may be longer, maybe 10 minutes. So it's not easy. But what's easy that has value, Jerry?
Let me think. Now, would I be putting you on the spot, or is it? I mean, does it make sense that you could lead a listener through a standing meditation for a couple minutes?
Well, yes. I mean, ultimately, I would love to be in front of them so I can correct their posture. But yes, I could walk someone through it in this format very briefly. Yes.
All right. Well, I'm going to stand up. Hopefully, my headphones will reach, and I'll listen to you.
Okay. So we'll start from the bottom up, and then we'll go back down again. So we'll start with the feet. So the feet are about shoulder width, maybe the inside of your shoulders, and I don't know, it could be about 18 inches perhaps. But in this format, of course, we're going to be very loose with our specifics, and we want to get a feel of the weight being evenly distributed in the feet. Okay, and so that's the posture, that's the position of our feet. Okay, so straight ahead, not slanted to different angles. And then, as we work our way up, we want our knees not to be locked, but not to be bent. So the best way to do this is to lock your knees and then release them. And in that there is where you should be. So not locked, but not bent, like we're in a yoga posture or a Tai Chi posture, but just simply unlocked.
And Howard, sorry to interrupt. Are the eyes kept open, or does it matter?
We're not up to the eyes yet.
Oh, okay.
We're working our way up.
Still to the knees. Okay.
Okay, so we just locked our knees and we released them, and so now this is where we are. So next we're going to go up to the hips and the pelvis area. And what we're going to do in a very gentle way is tuck our tailbone in. Okay, so we're going to tuck our tailbone in just a little bit, and we want it to be relaxed. So oftentimes tucking the tailbone in, excuse the phrase, but that also sometimes allows us to tighten our anus. But we want to make sure we're all relaxed down there completely, but just with a simple tilt of the pelvis in. And then as we want to work our way up, now our shoulders. And now it's just a matter of simply being conscious of our shoulders and letting them hang. And seeing if there's any holding. Oftentimes the holding of shoulders And neck tension generally happens in layers. We think we might be completely relaxed, but over time and practice, we find out that there's different layers of holding. But for right now, of course, we just want to be conscious of holding our shoulders and not hold them and just relax them. Same with the neck area. Be conscious of any tension. And finally, not finally, but we're in the head area, and we want to feel as if there's a string attached to the top of our head, and it's being suspended from something above us. So in Tai Chi, we oftentimes say, hold the head as if it's being suspended by heaven. So there's a string. So we don't want our head tilted down. We don't want to tilt it to the side. But there's almost a quality of like the bottom of the nose should be parallel to the ground. And then lastly, we'll talk about the eyes. So what I do with my students is if we're inside, we oftentimes practice with our eyes closed or semi-closed, meaning just halfway closed. If we're outside, though, I stress to keep the eyes open. And so it depends what's comfortable. But oftentimes, if we close our eyes, we can get more of a sense of the body and on all the different nuances that occur when you stand. And so now with all those points that I discussed, we want to have a feeling of dropping the weight. We don't want to hold the weight. We want to drop the weight all the way down to the bottom of our feet. In Tai Chi, we call the bottom of our feet the bubbling wells because it's from good, strong postures, starting with the weight being dropped through the feet, then energy bubbles up. We'll get to energy in a moment. So our feet are flat, weight evenly distributed, our knees aren't locked, our hip is slightly tilted in, shoulders relaxed, head is suspended, and this is the posture. Now we'll get to the arms. The arms, elbows are not locked and they're not bent. They're just hung naturally, and the palms of our feet the palms of our hands are facing the rear. So this could take a little bit of effort because usually if we just hang naturally, that palms are kind of towards our thighs. We want to turn the palms to the rear. This opens up the chest a little bit and also adds some degree of formality to the standing, which helps keeps our attention. So this is the formal posture. It's called Wuji, W-U-J-I. So Wuji is not Tai Chi. So Tai Chi is the harmonious relationship of opposites, but in Wuji, nobody's moving. We're doing nothing. So this is before yin and yang. It's an empty circle. And this is Wuji. And it's a gift, I feel, this practice is. It's been a gift to me. It's been a gift to the folks I share it with, just learning how to stand. So we stand like this, and then after we get comfortable with our posture, I suggest just feeling your breath through your nose and attempting to stay present. Our thoughts will take us to places. We come back to the present, come back to the breath, dropping our weight, being conscious if we're holding anything. And this is the basic posture of Wuji Qigong. So, welcome, Jerry. You've arrived to the world of Wuji.
I'm still standing here like this. What do I do now? Now I got to come out of this thing.
Yeah, you just come out and
All right.
shake it a little bit, and you can sit back down.
I'm getting. So in a Tai Chi Chuan class, then when is that? I'm guessing that's done in the beginning of a class.
Believe it or not, I usually do it towards the end because people come to Tai Chi to move. So we open, we stretch, we do some joint opening exercises, deep breathing, and we practice our Tai Chi, and then we end the class with standing meditation. Yeah.
And is there, to me, if there's an understanding, to me, there's kind of an experiential understanding of like formlessness and form, or movement coming out of nothingness, or form coming out, form and the formlessness being related.
Well, the nature of Wuji is that it's formless in the sense there's no movement.
Yeah.
And then Tai Chi begins the movement, the movement of opposites harmonizing. Because all the Tai Chi movements always consist of an action and a reaction. So there's different parts of the body moving in opposite ways. And so that's right, form and formlessness, and just standing a Wuji, and then the form shows movement, and it does relate to those concepts. Yeah.
So is that your thing, using that standing meditation? Is that how common is that in Tai Chi Chuan teachings?
It's a distant cousin of Tai Chi Chuan, and for those that have been touched by it and see value in it, like myself, I've attempted to learn about it extensively. There's several books. I actually studied with a wonderful teacher who is in Vancouver. Did you say you were in Vancouver?
No, I'm actually in the Nova Scotia way. We're actually east of Maine, actually, way on the
Oh,
East
you're on the
Coast.
East Coast, of course.
You're way
Yeah,
on the East
Vancouver.
Coast.
Yeah, Vancouver, British Columbia. And he was a fellow who he comes to the States periodically. His name is Master Sam Tam, and he teaches standing meditation as a part of his other energy and movement classes, including Tai Chi. So I've been to workshops with people that have offered this as a more of a concentrated method, and developed it on my own. Did a lot of reading, but it's definitely not mine. It's a very, very distinct practice that came from China, along with other martial arts.
So your decision to incorporate standing meditation, how was that, or is that related to your understanding of non-dual teachings?
The standing meditation?
Yeah, the decision to incorporate that as part of your Tai Chi Chuan class, is that related to your understanding of non-dual teachings?
Well, let's see. The non-dual teachings that have been a part of my life for many, many years. There's a tremendous value for me in that approach, and so incorporating standing meditation allows, especially when we start talking more in depth about what we do when we're standing there, specifically meditation and present moment awareness, that allows discussions of the nature of non-dual awareness. Yes. However, a lot of people that come to Tai Chi class don't have initially much of an interest in things like non-dual awareness. So I kind of tread on those grounds lightly, depending on the interest. But for me personally, yes, it was initiated by my love of meditation.
Yeah. And that's interesting in classes, and you hear the same, what you're describing in your Tai Chi Chuan class, you hear the same thing in yoga classes. Yoga teachers will, incorporate or sneak in some non-dual teachings, but the yoga teachers I know will say the same thing you do, that most people really don't, they don't want to get that into it, or they're not that interested in that. They're more interested in the physical and some of the mental benefit of the practice.
A little bit of relaxation, some physical stuff, and they go home, and that's okay. But we touch on that enough whereby if there's any interest and there's questions that develop, we go from there.
Do you have people who take a real interest in non-duality?
Not really.
Yeah. What's going on there in Pennsylvania?
Well, I don't know what's going on there.
Well, no, I think it's most people just aren't that interested in it,
But my approach to Tai Chi also has for me, non-dual awareness is rooted in, I think, seeing through accepted norms, seeing through conditioning, seeing through beliefs, and attempting to touch on something real beyond all of that. So that's how I teach Tai Chi. I try to teach it with no concepts that are widely accepted, and I incorporate. I don't incorporate any concepts that I don't believe in, that I don't live, that I don't feel. So there's no promises of cosmic consciousness practicing Tai Chi. There's no promises on generating this chi energy. There's no promises of anything. We just take things one step at a time and experience what we experience, and it's rooted more in a very real experience for all of us. No promises that are held out for people that whereby when they practice they think they're not getting it and it's not for them, and they don't understand what this chi is and these acupuncture points and all these mysterious concepts that oftentimes are very elusive. And they came over, I think, from the East to us eager Americans, ready and willing to believe anything. And oftentimes, I don't think they really have the value that it's cranked up to be.
Yeah.
I just opened up a lot of doors there. But so that's my approach in teaching this physical art of Tai Chi with a meditative quality. No promises of things that really can't be touched and experienced.
So it's just very practical.
Very practical, but also there's a metaphysical quality, but the metaphysical quality is experienced
Yeah.
by people. So for instance, you've heard of the concept of chi,
Mm-hmm.
of course, right? So I personally have never experienced this innate internal burning energy called chi. I've worked out with some very accomplished Tai Chi masters, Chinese, and all they spoke about was Chi. And I worked out with other accomplished, very learned Tai Chi masters from China that never spoke about Chi. So for me, I've never experienced it as it's oftentimes described in the myth and the legends. I have a working definition of Chi, which is basically just the practice. When one practices and one develops physical skills and sensitivity to the body, and they move with intention, you're going to have results and efficiency and graceful movement more so than if you never practiced and you didn't have mental intention. So Chi is a result of physical skill and mental intention that allows better than average results. So I don't teach it as a cosmic energy, like prana in the yogic tradition, or energy that you have to feel your chi, feel your chi, feel your chi. It's a result of skillful movement and mental intention, and then there's a result there. And so sometimes I use that quality as saying, feel your chi in that movement. Did you feel your chi? But not from a cosmic energy that really is very elusive. So for me, that's almost like a non-dual approach. What are we experiencing aside from concepts that are very mysterious? What's happening right now? So that's how I sometimes incorporate non-dual teachings.
I think it is. I think it's totally a teaching in the moment, about the moment, the experience of the moment, and not encouraging a flight to, like you say, some of the exotic teachings and concepts.
Yeah.
Which also are based on real experience, but God knows what happened to them when they get written up and translated. And
oh, sure. Sometimes I feel that the sharing of such cosmic experiences by modern day teachers, I wonder if there's really an experience there, or there's really just a gift of articulating a concept. It seems like there's an experience there. Do you know what I mean by that?
You mean that it's based on actual experience?
Well, I wonder if some of the teachers are really experiencing certain qualities, or they're so gifted at speaking about it, it just seems like they've experienced it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, some people are just gifted at, like you said, gifted at speaking, and so it becomes kind of, that's associated with charisma
and wisdom,
magnetism, and wisdom's part of it, and so you're drawn, and you become to a person, you become a believer, and I mean that magnetism can be of benefit, because you can be drawn to, you can be pulled into a good experience of a teacher.
As long as it's a good experience of a teacher and it's not an abusive relationship.
Yeah, well, that often happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find yourself? I mean, as a teacher, you're in a position of power, and do you find yourself sometimes kind of having too much power, or do you kind of play down that? Sometimes you have to play it down sometimes. Do you feel people see too much in you?
Sometimes they think because I'm efficient in Tai Chi and proficient in the movements and able to teach it with some understanding and with a lot of experience, I think they sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes it's perceived as being a master of all of life,
Mm-hmm.
and I do play that down. So I have no need for power over people. I have no need to make a living from teaching. This isn't my profession. And allowing a relationship to take place whereby you're the student and you don't know, and I'm the teacher and I do know. There's a lot of room for abuse there. Subtle abuse. I'm not talking about, sleeping with the 21-year-old gopis that come here or anything like that. Subtle psychic abuse that allows people to think that they aren't there, they're never going to get there, the teacher's there, the teacher will always be there, and I think it could not allow growth to take place, where growth should take place in a much easier way. So I don't have a
Yeah.
need for that type of, if I have answers to your questions and you want to come here and learn with me and I could teach you, wonderful. And I try to instill more of a self-sufficient power in my students. Go, enjoy your life. You have what you need, and more than you don't have what you need, and you're going to have to keep coming here for many years, and maybe you'll get it one day.
Mhm.
I don't have a need for that type of
Yeah.
structure.
And yet you are a master at what you do, and in a natural, I think, respect comes out of that anyway. You don't really have to, fight for it or anything.
Oh no, there's respect is I think needed in a relationship whereby I want to share teachings. We have to have a respectful relationship, yes. But I like people to be empowered.
Hmm.
Like Krishnamurti used to talk about just just the abuse sometimes of teachers that held up teachings that whereby you don't have it, you'll never get it. And Krishnamurti's message was, take a look, you're right there now, everything is there, and he never set up a structure. His history is just fantastic. He never set up a structure of him being a teacher. I'll tell you a story about Krishnamurti, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
And he's just he just popped into my brain for some reason. He's one of many teachers that I've enjoyed learning about over the years. I went to see him in Madison Square Garden in the mid-'80s. And in Madison Square Garden, it's a big place, and there had to be at least 10,000 people there, maybe 15,000.
They were just there to see him,
Just to see
and
him.
we're talking about Jiddu Krishnamurti.
Judo, yeah,
Yeah.
not Yuji
Right.
Krishnamurti, who has touched me immensely in my life. I've never met him, but Yuji Krishnamurti was quite a teacher. Anyway, Jiddu Krishnamurti was, I guess, touring in the East Coast, and we went to see him. And so there's 10 or 15,000 people there. And on the stage was like a folding chair. It looked like somebody just grabbed it from backstage, a janitor's closet, whatever it was. I remember if it was wooden or plastic, but there was a chair on the stage. And I guess at the time that his talk was to start, or a few minutes after, he comes walking on stage. And people stood up and started applauding, and he held up his hand. He didn't want that. People quieted down. He sat on the stage, on this chair, some folding chair. You ever see him, by the way?
I saw him once in Ojai.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so he spoke for an hour or so, got up, people applauded once again, and he walked off the stage. There was no announcer, there was no elaborate set. It was so touching because he wasn't interested in power, he was interested in sharing an experience, sharing some wisdom, sharing some insights, and then it's time to move on. And so it was very sweet. Because I've been in situations, and more than one time, where teachers, the setup is very elaborate, and it creates barriers.
Yeah. Wow, Krishnamurti and MSG.
Yeah,
Man,
that's right.
your philosophy of relationship is pretty basic.
Yeah, basic and always an attempt of authenticity and just friendship. Not always easy, but that's oftentimes that's what I lean towards, and
Yeah.
that's what I want. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Now, your regular job, you sell insurance.
Yeah. A second career started around 2008, and led me to this new profession that I immensely enjoy, and I primarily help the folks here in the U.S. that are 65 and older with their Medicare insurance.
Oh, okay.
And I help them buy certain products that supplement the coverage that the government gives them. So I sit at retirees' kitchen tables almost every day, helping them navigate through the insurance process.
Oh, so here's probably the first question I should have asked. How did you get interested in Tai Chi Chuan?
Ah, well, when I was a teenager, 15 or 16, I was fascinated with martial arts, and I began studying karate. And I continued studying karate till I was about in my late 20s. And the karate is tough on your body, your joints. And after a while, I got bored. And at that time, meditation was a strong influence in my life, and I knew Tai Chi had a meditative quality to it. So I just started looking around for different Tai Chi teachers, and it was just a love of martial arts and moving into something that had a little bit more of a meditative quality. And that was back in the early 80s. And that's how I got into it. Just enjoyed the martial arts, and Tai Chi was a natural outgrowth of that.
Besides Tai Chi, when it comes to non-duality and the martial arts, I also hear that Aikido has a pretty strong non-dual component. Have you ever gotten into Aikido much?
Never got into Aikido. It's very beautiful to watch, when they fly all over the place. And it's a very meditative quality. It's a very internal quality, but I from what I've read, but I've never practiced it. And like Tai Chi, it works on being soft with an incoming hard energy. So here comes a hard energy attacking me, and I want to be soft in my movements to defend myself. So there's that harmonizing quality again, and I'm sure throughout Aikido that philosophy permeates. So it can be has some spiritual qualities to it. I don't know much about it.
Yeah. How much is Tai Chi steeped in Buddhism?
Tai Chi has its roots in Taoism, actually,
Okay.
and Taoism
That
was
makes
more
sense.
and Taoism is more of a religion, quote unquote, that was rooted in just the observance of nature and the yin yang principles, and so not so much Buddhism, but more Taoism.
Mm.
That was the Taoist monks were the ones that created or started Tai Chi.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you get into Taoism much yourself as a
Not
source
No,
teaching?
not really. More Buddhism. Buddhism has inspired me greatly when I was a young man, and then I went in different directions and more towards kind of like Indian and yogic and non-dual teachings. And the last 5 years, I started going on some meditation retreats based on Buddhist principles like the Theravada and Vipassana meditation, and
Mm.
it's just been so rich for me. I've been reading a lot more about Buddhism than I ever have, and there's some sweet teachers, and there's no guru kind of structures. There's no power structures in the traditions that I read about, and it's been very rich. And so that's been a strong source of inspiration. And Vipassana meditation, insight meditation at different levels, the deeper levels and maybe not so deeper levels, so much of that is so closely aligned to the non-dual teachings of understanding our conditioning, seeing through the illusion, seeing just the oneness of life, and um, just our non-dual nature. And it seems like Buddhism's been talking about that for many, many, many years. And so there's a richness of that tradition along with just kind of modern non-dual approaches that I enjoy as well. But Buddhism is very inspiring to me.
Yeah. Do you like any of the non-dual teachers around today?
Well,
Interesting.
yeah, well, Yuji Krishnamurti, but he died. What has it been, about a year or so, right?
Yeah.
He's very inspiring. Um, the modern satsang teacher, so to speak, um, uh, they all kind of all lumped in one. Who stands out for me? For some reason, I get inspired by his sense of humor and his wisdom and just his nuances, and that's that gentleman named Mooji.
Yeah.
Mooji seems to have some sweetness about him that I really respect and enjoy. But Robert Wolfe,
Yeah.
he is a very, very sweet and very wise man, and I think he really stands out from the pack in a lot of ways. He's not interested in putting on a show. He's not interested, from what I can see, of any sort of power structure. And I hope to meet him one day. And he's a very, very powerful guy.
Yeah, I think he's out in Ojai.
Yeah,
Yeah, you got to get out to California.
yeah. His story is very inspiring. And he also, of course, was once an insurance agent, so there's some affinity to that.
Oh, well, that's the main thing. What's with that?
I don't know. So, but he's a very powerful guy.
Ramesh Valsakar was a banker, of course.
Oh, so
Yeah.
my introduction to non-dual teaching, I think you might find a little interesting, and this was back in the early '80s when and you and I had a couple emails over the years by the present-day author Stephen Harrison.
Yeah.
So Stephen Harrison came in contact in India and in the West a few times, apparently in the early '80s, of a teacher named Dr. R.P. Kaushik. Are you familiar with him?
No.
Ever heard of him?
No.
Well, R.P. Kaushik, he taught in a similar vein as Krishnamurti. And he wrote a lot of books, very powerful books of just looking past our conditioning, understanding who we are, and in a sense of inquiry.
How do you spell his last name?
Kaushik.
RP. Okay.
Yeah, R
Oh,
period, P period,
okay.
Kaushik.
Okay.
And I think Stephen, through his publishing, Sentient Publications,
Yeah.
he, I think, republished a couple of Dr. Kaushik's books. And he unfortunately died a young man, I think in his late 50s. He was a very handsome man. And so Stephen was very touched by Dr. Kaushik. And Stephen was, even as a young man, I knew him in his 20s. He was very intense, very passionate, and very wise. And I knew him for many, many years. I was living out in Boulder, Colorado when he was living there. When I came back east, I stayed in touch with him, visited him often. His mother lived not too far from where I lived, and he would come in and visit, so we'd spend some time. I've lost touch with him over the last several years, but so back in the early '80s, this type of inquiry or non-dual teachings became known to me, and it was always something that resonated with me. And
Oh,
then,
so
yeah,
so through Stephen Harrison. Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
So then what happened?
and then I lost touch with Stephen. He's still out in Colorado, I think. And but then as non-dual became popular,
Mm.
that type of teaching always attracted me, as well as some simple Buddhist approaches as well. When I say simple, Tibetan Buddhist with all the philosophies and afterbirths and rebirths and karma and color and all that doesn't pull me really. It's just the simple kind of Vipassana Buddhist teachings that inspire me a bit and I enjoy. But it was from meeting Stephen back in the early '80s is what set me off on this path. I was about
Wow.
22 or 23, and now I'm 57. Where has
Yeah.
time gone?
Yeah. 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 And what's happened in all that time?
What's happened? Yeah. I lost a little hair. That's what's happened.
Yeah. Well,
And my belly's a little bigger than it used to be. Not much, but a little.
get off the wheat.
Yes. That's true. there is effort in that direction for sure. And but hopefully there's been some wisdom. But there's also over the years, so one says, what's happened during that period. I feel very blessed that there's been an introduction and an attraction to the interior life, so to speak, an interior life of exploration, not dependent on religion, not dependent on philosophies, not dependent on teachers, not dependent on concepts. So being introduced to that possibility has been very much a blessing.
I think in many ways that kind of rounds out the interview. So, now we can get to some good stuff.
Okay. Okay.
Whatever that is, I don't know. Mm-hmm. No, it's all good stuff.
It's all good stuff, yeah. So, well, does that seem to be kind of a natural ending then?
I don't know. I mean, it is, and it can be, because I can edit things. If we don't, if nothing else interesting or juicy comes up, that could be the ending.
Okay.
And do you feel we've touched on what you wanted to talk about?
Bit of an introduction to Tai Chi and my approach to teaching it, and my involvement with non-dual teachings, quote unquote. That was shared a little bit, and that's I think I pretty much shared with you everything. Yeah.
And people can find out more about Medicare.
Yeah, right. If you want an enlightened Medicare advisor, tell them to call me.
Right.
Yeah. But that's an interesting point, though. See, my approach with clients is not one of selling them a policy. I do a lot of that. I've been very successful at it. But my approach really is to sit down with them and listen to them and see what they need and see where they're coming from. And that approach has allowed me to experience a lot of success in that realm, because my name gets passed around and a lot of referrals, and it's become quite easy where the income is good and there's a lot of free time. But it's not one of selling somebody. It's more or less listening to them, listening to their needs, and then helping them find the right plan for them. So it's been a good approach. People need that. They want that. They want people to sit down with them and just work with them as opposed to selling them something. So that's been my approach.
That's really creates an interesting turn then in this kind of interview, because people listening are, some of them are selling, they're working for a living.
Yeah.
And I think you've already given a nice tip there, or really more than a tip, a foundational statement on how to sell, even if you don't call it selling, which has to do with listening.
Yeah.
Apparently. So can you talk a little more about listening, perhaps?
Well, when I sit down with people, first of all, my potential clients are usually 65 and older, and sometimes people go on Medicare when they're older than 65 because they're still working and they have an insurance from the employer. But so 65 or older, and they come with a lot of experience and a lot of they want to tell their story. So because oftentimes it seems like as people get older and the world becomes younger, nobody's listening anymore. So I sit down with them and I start asking them some basic questions, and I give them space to elucidate on their answers. So they get very comfortable with me, and I find it fascinating. I find that there could be a non-dual experience right at the kitchen table of these people that I've never met before, in that I see them in me and I see me in them, of just people with stories, with past, with hearts that are full, with hearts that are broken, and there's almost no difference. I mean, that's just seeing that we're just these human creatures at this time and in this space, with conditioning in our brains, with experiences in our hearts, and a little different than yours, but basically it's all the same. And so I experienced that a lot sitting at the table. I don't articulate that. That's not what I'm there for. But my experience of that just allows for like an alignment whereby I'm working together with folks, and it really relaxes the process. And so I listen. What do you need? Who are you? What do you want? And there's always sharings about what they do, what they've done, and of course there's always sharings about this country and Obama's great, Obama's no good, and I sit there and I listen. So that allows me to help them. So because I listen to the answers, I read the lines in between the answers to get an idea who they are, and so there's a relationship there. And then I show them some of their options, and they choose the option that works for them, and I have a client, and that's what I do.
Yeah.
There's a lot behind. It's, in the world of selling, it's called consultative selling. As opposed to pushing and selling, you are consulting to getting to a desired outcome. And it's a very legitimate. For me, it makes it enjoyable. My personality is such where I couldn't do it any other way.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit about what I do.
Have you always been in sales?
Well, for 20 years, I owned a company that provided a service to businesses. So there was selling in that.
Yeah.
So that there was selling, and I had other people selling the product as well. And so there was always my orientation has always been business. I'm not a scholar sitting in a library at a university, or I'm not a doctor. I'm not an architect. It's always been in the world of business in one way or the other.
Did you have to go to like a sales training for the Medicare stuff?
Only to learn the product, but no sales process. Because oftentimes at our age, 57, you're 64, you embark upon new things, and you look, and the person that's teaching it to you is 27 years old, and there's not much wisdom there. So my life experience is such where that type of training really doesn't have much value. I just need to learn the product, and I can sit down with people and do what I need to do.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask. If you did take a training class, I was going to ask how you managed that, or how that
Yeah,
went.
I typically not really, just the product training. So it's a terrific career. I'm 57. I don't anticipate retiring in any near future. But as I'm getting older and working, so I could see a client a day. Sometimes I could see 3 a day. Sometimes I could see clients in the morning and not the night. Maybe the next day I can only see clients at night based on their schedule. So I have all day free. So it's wonderful flexibility at this stage of my life. And like I said, the income is above average. And so I feel very blessed.
And it sounds like, people, when they have some kind of, sensitivity to their true nature and all that, they're very aware of whether their work is, it's like good for their soul or not,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm sure you're that type of a guy. So, and from the way you're talking about your work, it sounds like it's good for your soul, because you're you're kind of on a soul level with people, it sounds like.
It gives me that opportunity to get there.
Yeah.
That's right. And yeah, it's very sweet. It'd be difficult if I was doing things that didn't align with my natural inclinations, but this does, and it seems to work.
Yeah, but do you feel you can take any job you were doing and make it align?
Possibly, but good chance not, depending on the circumstances. If I had to work for somebody and I had to adhere to a culture, that might be more difficult. So I don't know. But I think there's always that opportunity, whether it's relationship with coworkers, relationship with supervisors, relationship with subordinates, relationship with customers. I think there's always a quality of authenticity that could be shared. Yeah.
What would you say pardon?
That's the challenge, I think, that we all have. Yeah.
What would you say to, let's say someone's listening, they're a struggling salesperson. Every salesperson hits a roadblock once in a while. Like how have you hit any kind of roadblocks where sales just aren't coming, and how do you get through them, or how would you advise people to get through those times?
Well, I have a unique situation whereby the thrust of getting my name out into the community and surrounding communities, I do free Medicare seminars at local libraries. So people find out about me. By the time I sit down at their kitchen table, they already kind of know me from the seminar, so sales are easy. However, if there were any dry periods, I guess we're going from the sacred to the profane, so to speak, in regards to the interview. But if there's ever roadblocks that salespeople encounter, you have to take a look at: do you still believe in your product? Are you still enthused about it? And have you experimented with different marketing, mailings and box? I guess depending, without knowing the product or without knowing the people, it's hard for me to talk specific.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So,
but we're probably, pardon?
You have to passionately believe in the product you're selling, and that oftentimes opens up doors. If you're just selling a product to make a living, I'm sure that makes it a little easier if you don't believe in it. It makes it a little harder to proceed if you don't believe in it.
Mm.
Yeah.
And it probably helps if they practice Tai Chi Chuan.
Or some modality that just connects you to your body, connects you to your breath, connects you to an internal quality. That's right. And having a little trust. If you're running wild and trying to make that next sale to make a living and pay the mortgage, there might be a need for that, but I'm sure it would make it all harder. And the people you're sitting across from might sense that desperation.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Howard Peck, your website is taichiwithhowardpeck.com. Yeah, I think we covered a lot,
Yeah, we did. It's been delightful.
Covered your career. We kind of hung out there at the end to find out about your sales.
Yeah.
Get some sales advice.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, here's the secret. You want to know the secret to sales?
Yes, that's the reason I called you.
Okay. It's a cute little metaphor. Okay, so the shoe manufacturer in Australia decides to introduce his line of shoes to the Aborigine tribes in the outbacks of Australia. And he sends his two best salespeople to do it. And he sends them, and a week later, approximately, he gets an email for the first salesperson. And the email says, "Boss, we're not going to do well here. There's just no opportunity because the Aborigines don't wear shoes." And a couple minutes later, he gets an email from the second salesperson, says, "Boss, we're going to do fantastic here. The Aborigines don't wear shoes." So it's really just a matter of perspective. And looking for opportunity.
Yeah. And that builds passion. That passion was a key word you said.
Sure, yeah.
for whatever.
Yeah.
You can see it again going back to your videos of you doing Tai Chi Chuan. You can see, the flowering of passion there. Well, beautiful. It's great talking to you, Howard.
Okay, same here. Perhaps we'll meet at one of the conferences that I always see advertised.
There's a conference this October.
Is that the one in Europe?
The one in Europe's in May, early May.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to go there. Where's the one in October?
And that's in Northern California. I think it's going to be in San Jose.
All right, it's been a pleasure, and I thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much, and we'll be in touch soon.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.